You crack an egg into a pan every single morning without thinking twice about it. It is the most ordinary object in your kitchen. Now actually look at what you are holding. An egg is a single cell built by millions of years of evolution to become a living, breathing animal, a complete package of nutrients, instructions, and potential life. So why does one species version of that sit in your fridge as a daily staple, while almost every other animal's version on this planet never comes anywhere near your plate? Humans eat over 1 trillion chicken eggs every single year. That is more than 150 eggs for every single person alive on Earth, from one species of bird. Meanwhile, there are roughly 10,000 species of birds on this planet. Add reptiles, fish, amphibians, and insects, and nearly every one of them lays eggs too. Almost none of them will ever end up on a table. Here's the part that changes how you see your breakfast. The chicken did not win because its eggs are special. It won because of a chain of accidents that had almost nothing to do with taste. Let's start with the animal that almost took its place. Quail eggs. Tiny, speckled, sold in tins across Asia and parts of Europe. Biologically, they are almost the same thing as a chicken egg. Same bird family, same structure, just smaller. Once a culture accepts one bird's egg as food, a closely related bird slides in right behind it. No resistance, no hesitation. Duck eggs work the same way. Richer yolk, thicker shell, but close enough that most people never even question it. Now here is where it gets uncomfortable. In parts of the Philippines, Vietnam, and Cambodia, a fertilized duck egg is incubated for nearly 3 weeks, then boiled, embryo and all. Millions of people eat this casually, the same way you would eat a boiled egg on your way to work. To someone raised on a Western breakfast table, that single sentence can trigger real physical disgust. But structurally, it is the exact same egg you had this morning, just caught a few days later in its development. A psychologist named Paul Rozin spent decades studying exactly this reaction. What he found should unsettle you. Disgust is almost never about actual danger. It is a learned response, installed after birth, not before it. The egg never changed. Somebody's upbringing did. Now go further out. Fish eggs break the pattern completely because they are not hidden or shameful. They are celebrated. Caviar, from sturgeon, can sell for thousands of dollars a pound. Salmon roe sits proudly on sushi counters in nearly every major city. Fish eggs prove the line was never really about how far an animal sits from us on the tree of life. Now push even further. Ostrich eggs. A single one is roughly the size of 2 dozen chicken eggs combined. Stone Age hunter-gatherers in southern Africa prized them enormously, not just for eating, but for their shells, which they carved, decorated, and used as water containers on long journeys across the desert. For tens of thousands of years, one giant egg genuinely could feed an entire group, and yet today, almost nobody has ever tasted one. Then there is the example that breaks people's assumptions the hardest. Insects. Ants, in parts of Mexico, lay eggs harvested and sold as a delicacy called escamoles, sometimes nicknamed insect caviar. Buttery, slightly nutty, served in tacos. To most Western audiences, the idea alone is enough to end the conversation before it starts. But by every biological measure, an ant egg and a chicken egg are doing the exact same job, carrying the exact same kind of information, wrapped in the exact same kind of shell. Rosin's research found something else worth mentioning here. Disgust is one of the only human emotions that spreads through pure association, not logic. Show someone a perfectly sterilized bowl, tell them a cockroach touched it once, and most people will refuse to eat from it, even after watching it get washed. The actual risk becomes irrelevant the moment the idea of contamination enters the mind. That is not a food safety instinct. That is a story your brain tells itself and then refuses to let go of. So if it is not biology, and it is not taste, what is it? To answer that, we have to go back much further than breakfast. We have to go back to the actual reason chickens entered human life in the first place, and it has nothing to do with food. Chickens descend from a wild bird called the red jungle fowl, native to the forests of Southeast Asia. Archaeological evidence suggests humans first began keeping them somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000 years ago. Not to eat them, to watch them fight. Roosters carry natural fighting instincts, and sharp spurs built directly into their legs. Early humans found this compelling enough to capture, breed, and keep them purely for combat. For over 1,000 years afterward, chickens were treated as sacred, exotic curiosities. Egyptian records from around 1400 BCE describe them as strange imported animals, not livestock. Greek writings from 500 BCE still list eggs as a luxury item, not an everyday food. The bird sitting in your backyard today spent most of its early history as a spectacle, not a meal. Some of the clearest evidence for the actual shift comes from a site called Marisha in modern-day Israel. Archaeologists found enormous numbers of chicken bones there, dated to a few centuries before the Roman era, most of them from female birds. That single detail matters enormously. Female birds mean egg production, not fighting stock, not meat alone. It is one of the earliest signs anywhere in the ancient world that people had begun raising chickens specifically for their eggs as an actual economic decision. Even that shift did not happen everywhere at once. Some regions clung to chicken as a curiosity for centuries longer. Others adopted it quickly, then abandoned it, then picked it back up again generations later. The spread of the egg-laying chicken across the ancient world looks less like an invention and more like a slow, uneven accident repeating itself in different places at different speeds. So how did a fighting animal become a breakfast staple? Rice farming may be the missing link. In parts of Thailand, wild jungle fowl were drawn out of the trees by the smell of grain, brought closer to human settlements simply by accident. Once they were close enough, domestication followed naturally. Even then, it took centuries. It was not until the Roman period that keeping chickens for meat and eggs became genuinely widespread across the Mediterranean. And once it started, biology took over completely. Chickens turned out to be almost perfectly designed for mass food production. They lay eggs constantly, not seasonally, unlike most wild birds. They reproduce quickly. They tolerate almost any climate. And one bird is exactly the right size to feed a single family without waste. None of that was planned. It was luck, discovered slowly, one generation at a time. It is worth asking, briefly, why other birds did not get the same chance. Geese and ducks were domesticated too, but later and in smaller numbers, mostly in regions where wetlands made them easy to keep. Pigeons were kept widely across the ancient world, but almost entirely for meat and messages, never really for eggs, since a pigeon only lays one or two at a time. Out of roughly 10,000 bird species alive today, only a small handful were ever domesticated at all. And out of that handful, only one was already sitting near rice farmers in Southeast Asia, already carrying natural fighting instincts humans found entertaining, already producing eggs constantly rather than seasonally, at the exact moment early agriculture was spreading across the region. Remove any single one of those coincidences, and you are very possibly eating something else entirely for breakfast today. By the 20th century, industrial farming turned that luck into an empire. Today, there are roughly 25 billion chickens alive on Earth at any given moment, more than any other bird by an enormous margin. To put that number next to something familiar, that is more chickens alive right now than every human being who has ever lived across the entire span of human history combined. One species of bird, quietly outnumbering our own entire timeline. And it happened almost entirely in the last 100 years. For nearly 10,000 years, chickens were a slow, uneven, regional curiosity. Then, in a single century, selective breeding, refrigeration, and factory-scale farming turned that same bird into the most numerous creature on the planet. Not because it suddenly became a better animal, because the technology around it finally caught up to what it had quietly been capable of the entire time. So here is the actual answer to the question we started with. The chicken did not win a taste test. It won a historical lottery. Wrong bird, wrong forest, wrong moment in time, and the rest of the animal kingdom simply never got the same chance. Quail almost made it in, because it looked close enough to something we already trusted. Duck eggs made it in the same way, right up until the exact same egg, a few days older, becomes something most people cannot even look at. Fish eggs walked straight through the door we thought was locked, because nobody built a wall around the ocean in the first place. Every line we draw between what is food and what is not food was built by history, not biology, most of it by accident. That means the breakfast in front of you right now is not a fact about nature. It is a leftover decision, made by people who lived thousands of years ago, who were never thinking about your kitchen at all.
Think about how strange that actually is. You have never once sat down and personally decided that a chicken egg counts as food and a duck embryo does not. Nobody ever gave you that choice. It was already decided long before you were born, passed down as if it were simply the way things are, rather than the way things happen to turn out. The same is true of almost everything else on your plate. The animals we call livestock and the ones we call pests, the plants we call crops and the ones we call weeds. Very few of those categories were chosen for any deep biological reason. Most of them were chosen the same way the chicken was chosen, by proximity, by accident, by whichever species happened to be standing closest to us at the exact moment agriculture began. None of this means balut is secretly delicious to you, or that you need to go try ant eggs by next weekend. Disgust is real, and it is allowed to stay exactly where it is. But it is worth knowing, the next time something on a plate makes you recoil, that the recoiling itself is not proof of anything dangerous. It is proof of where you were born and nothing more. If this changed how you look at your next breakfast, you are not imagining it. You just saw the accident for exactly what it is.